Okay, folks, carrying on with area plans here. So again, the gross building area scheme is a special one that puts the automatically generated area boundaries to the outside of the walls. Now, otherwise, one thing to kind of maybe be aware of, when you put an area object in a scheme, so this area object that you see here and the area boundaries that were created in this scheme, so here in gross building, are not visible to the other area schemes. So in my building area scheme, its polylines are completely separate. So each one of your area plans has totally different area boundaries, totally different area objects. And that's the way it works. So there's no way that you can get your building purple area boundaries to show up in another area plan unless it's, of course, the same scheme. It doesn't work. Now, just like your room objects, you can see here the tag kind of has this little green connecting line between the area tag and the area object, and the area object looks like a room object. It's got that little locus, it's got an X, and you can drag it around. But so do the rooms. And in fact, the rooms are still visible in the area plans. That can create confusion. So when you grab it, I'm not grabbing an area object there, that is a room object. So in your area plans, you can see your rooms, but in your regular floor plans, you can only see the rooms, not the areas. If you wish to see your areas, you must go to your area plans. And it's probably advisable, just to make sure that you don't confuse yourself, in your area plans, turn off your rooms so that you don't accidentally move them or delete them. So now you can see the only thing that's in here is the area object. One thing with these tags, you can see that there's a leader option. This is both for area tags and room tags. And when you check it, it allows you to drag that area or room tag outside of the space that it's in. So for whatever reason, if you need to do that in one of your views, that is an option. So here, this retail room, if I enable the leader, I can drag it outside, and the leader on the room tag points to the locus by default. So if I move the locus around, I guess it's not going to automatically put it back. If I say no, and yes, yeah, I guess it makes it point back to it after I've turned on the checkbox and on again. So now you know what that's about. I think next on the list of notes is groups, but I'm going to skip groups for now, and I'm going to go to talk about schedules. And the reason I want to talk about schedules is because I want to talk about pre-entering a room list. It's mentioned in the notes, but because we're here talking about rooms and areas, I'll do it right now. So to create a new schedule, whether it's a door schedule, a window schedule, a room schedule, or what have you, View tab, Schedules. So a schedule of anything is created by the schedule quantities command, and Revit pops up a list of all the different kinds of things that Revit can count. So there's the different area schemes that we've created. So Revit can create a schedule of all of those different areas too. So I'm actually going to do that here. I'm going to take the schedule of my zoning areas, but you can see down below there's a room schedule that we can create as well. Okay. So the schedule dialog has these different tabs at the top, and you can come back to this at a later date. So if you want to play with your schedule a little bit after you've created it, you'll be able to get access to this very same dialog box. On the left are all the fields that are available to you for the kind of object that you chose, in this case areas. And so now I can bring the name by just double clicking on it, or by hitting the green tab here. So I can hit name and then the green arrow, or I can just double click on it. So there's the name, and here's the area, which I'll double click, and then maybe the level as well. So what I want to do is list the level of the area in front of the name. So here you can see, once I've got the different fields listed, the one at the top will be leftmost in the list. So I'll click on level here, and I'm going to move it up. So then name and then area. So you can add and remove fields. So here I can double click on it or hit the green arrow that removes it, and so on. So here, if I wanted to get a perimeter around the edge of the area, I could do that as well. So that's the Fields tab. Now on the Filter tab, if I wanted to, I could get Revit to ignore the first floor. Now we'll talk about this more when we talk about a door schedule. So first of all, we're not going to have any filter. What this means is all of the areas will appear. Now on a door schedule, you could be in a really large project where if you tried to list all the doors in a project, it wouldn't fit on one sheet. So you might filter by just levels 1 to 3 or something like that. We're going to move to the Sorting and Grouping tab. So this tells Revit in what order you want the objects to appear. So we're going to sort by the level. So this means the first floor areas will come first, then the second, then the third. Formatting tab. So here we can decide, the justification and the orientation of the header. So for the name, I'll leave it left justified, but for the area, I'm going to make it right justified. So the formatting tab is just about justification. Then on the Appearance tab, you can choose the fonts that are used for your title at the top of the schedule, for headings, and for the regular text of the schedule itself. Now, what I would recommend that you folks do when you're working in Revit is to create a dedicated font style called maybe Schedule Body, Schedule Headings, Schedule Titles, so that you can have consistency between all of your different schedules. So we'll come back to that in a minute. So I'm going to hit OK. And now we have a schedule. Now, schedules appear in the project browser underneath your area plans here, just above your sheets. And this is the first schedule that we've created so far. So here you can see on level 1 and level 2, I've got these two areas that I created earlier. And so you guys remember, I did this one set of area boundaries here, set in 6 inches from the outside wall. I put in some extra area boundaries here so that my gross floor area would exclude the area of storage underneath the stairs. Made some area boundaries for level 2 and haven't made area boundaries for level 3 yet. I'll do that right now quickly. So now Revit has automatically added that extra floor area to the schedule. So any areas in that scheme, they're all getting added. Okay, what would we like to do next? It's obvious. It's numerical. It's standing right in front of you. What would be great if Revit could do it for us? Totals, exactly. So remember how I told you that we could get access to all those fields again? So if you press any one of these 5 buttons here, or is it 6? 5 buttons, it simply takes you to the tab. See, there's the Fields tab. If I hit Sorting and Grouping, it just simply takes you to the Sorting and Grouping tab inside here. So now what we're going to do, we want Revit to calculate the totals for the area. So that is area. So we want a total for this. So on Sorting and Grouping, we can ask for grand totals. And here we can ask for the title of the grand total. So on Sorting and Grouping, ask for grand totals, and then on Formatting, under Area, we need to show totals. So 2 things have to happen. You need the totals calculated, and you need to have grand totals shown. There we go. Now, this is saying total area, and it's showing 3 because there are 3 different areas. If we don't want to have that number there where it says total area 3, you've got to go back to Sorting and Grouping. And you want the title and totals only. There. Total area, 5441 square feet. What would be another nice thing to do? We're in Canada. We're messed up. Well, we're not messed up. The Americans are messed up. What should we do? That's right. We need a square meters column. Alrighty. So, here in our fields, we can add a special area column for to make it metric. Or what you can do is you can click on your area and where is it here? I think it's under Formatting. On the Formatting tab here, Field Formatting, we can choose the field format. So this means the units. So in this case, we're going to override our project settings where everything's in square feet. And in this instance, we can switch to square meters. A couple decimal places. Okay, and okay. So now we can show our area in square meters. How about both? Can we show both at once? So I'm going to go back and look at our area here and field format. Now there doesn't seem to be anything here about alternate units. So what to do? I want to show both. Well, I'm going to leave it at square feet for now. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another column and get it to put it into meters for us. So on the Fields tab here, we can add what's called a calculated parameter. So what we want to do is just take the area and play with it so that we can get a meters squared calculation. So I'm just going to click on this. So now we're adding another parameter to our rooms and to our schedule. So the name of it here, we're going to call it area M, and I'm going to go to character map here and just get the squared symbol. There we go. And it's going to be an area that we're using. And the formula is going to be crazy. It's just going to take the area parameter here, and we're just going to reuse it again. You guys will be able to go back on YouTube and see how we did this. So this is the button that we chose right here, add calculated parameter, and then we simply chose an area parameter so that it will easily pull the area number from our area parameter. Okay, so now we're going to do, if we wanted to, we could have made the, so here's where you can edit the parameter afterwards. So the area, I could have done a little bit of math with it, right? We could have said area divided by 10.76. But we don't have to do that. Instead, what we can do, so that's the edit button there that I was just using. Instead, I can go to the formatting tab, click on area meters squared, and for this one, switch to field format to square meters. So now we've got both parameters shown. Now you can see the imperial is right justified, the metric is not. So to change your justification, that's on the appearance tab. Oh, no, sorry, the formatting tab. So there's our area, square meters. It's left aligned, want it right aligned, hit OK. So now we want totals. So sorting and grouping, grand totals are there, but for area meters squared, there's no calculation. So we want calculation of totals. So now we have both meters squared and square feet. So now when you want to show this schedule somewhere, you've got to put it on a sheet to do it. We'll be talking about sheets soon enough, but I'll just talk about it right now so we can put this thing in here. So I'm going to right click on my sheets, choose new sheet. So once you've got a sheet placed, just like you put a floor plan on a sheet by dragging and dropping, right? So there's the floor plan. Drag and drop your schedule onto the sheet and it puts the schedule there. Okay, so that's a little bit of how you can use the schedules to get totals. We've talked about field formatting and some fairly complicated stuff. Now let's go back and talk about room schedules and how you can pre-add a room to your schedule. So again, View tab, Schedules, and we're going to go down to Rooms and choose that. There we go. Making a room schedule. Now there's lots and lots of different fields here. So the first thing we want is the story, or the level that the room is on. So I'm going to double click that. Then I want the number of the room, so I'll double click that. Then the name of the room. And I will do the floor finish, base finish, wall finish. Where's my wall finish? There it is. And finally my ceiling finish. Okay. So when I hit OK, actually I'm not going to hit OK. We're going to go through and do the sorting. Okay, so we're sorting by level first of all. Then after we've got all the first floor rooms in there, we want to sort them by number. So all the first floor rooms are going to show first, and the second floor rooms and the third floor and so on. Then we want to sort by number, so they all go in numerically in order. So by level first, then by the room number. Now at the bottom here you can see it says itemize every instance. Now that means for every room object in the project, give it its own row in the schedule. So if I were to uncheck it, it wouldn't list each room. In fact, it might completely mess up my room schedule. So why would I ever want to uncheck this? Well, let's say you're doing a window schedule and you've got 6 windows that are a C-type window. They're all exactly the same. You don't need to see 6 C windows in the schedule if they're all exactly the same window. So that's why you would uncheck it in those cases. Okay, so you got level and number, formatting. For right now, this is all fine. Appearance, this is all fine as well, and hit OK. So remember earlier I was showing you how I entered in some of the information here for the floor, base, wall, and ceiling finishes. That's still all present. So you can enter that stuff in the browser directly, or you can enter it in the plan. So if I enter it here in the schedule, so level 1, I can even change the name of the room, and it will change it back in my plans. And of course, if I changed it in plans, it would show up changed here in the schedule. So my floor finish in this case is going to be carpet. My base finish is going to be carpet. Wall finish, again, gypsum wallboard. And then no ceiling in this case because it's just open. Now remember, there's the room that I deleted earlier. It's still here in the list. So if I want to get rid of it, put my cursor in the row and I can hit delete. And that nukes this row and this room completely out of the project. Now remember earlier I was saying, what if you want to pre-add a list of rooms? Insert data row. So this allows me to add a room and then later place it in the schedule. So now I've got a room called storage, which isn't in the model yet. So here I'm in my room schedule. I've added a new room entry, but it's not in the model. So now, go back to my floor plan, and I might decide I'm going to put this storage right here near the stairs. So I'll draw another wall here. Wow, that wasn't very straight. My goodness. There. So put a door on it. Okay. Now, go and grab my room object now, room tool. And in the list here, it's going to be those 2 rooms that were in the schedule that weren't placed. So now I can put my storage room right there. When I go back to look at my room schedule, the storage no longer says not placed. Now, what about comparing the area in the model versus an area that you might have determined by your client, or maybe by an earlier space plan that's been done by an outside consultant? Now, you folks remember how in the area schedule here we added this extra column. That was a calculated value. So in fields, we hit this thing right here to add a calculated value. That's not what we need to do here. 2 things. We need to show the area of the room as it stands. So that field is missing. So there's area right there. So here I want to have the area above my finishes. So I want my finishes all together and then my area. So there's our areas right now. But if I want to include a number for the program area, I'm going to go to my fields, and there's the allowance to make a new parameter. So this one isn't calculated because it's not, the program area isn't based on any of the numbers that are in the model right now. That comes from outside of Revit. So I'll hit the new parameter button here. And so I want to make sure it is an area parameter. And I'm just going to change this and put it in under, I'm not sure where area is placed. I'll put it under dimensions for now. And you'll see what this group thing is in a few moments. So I'm going to call this program area. So now when I hit OK, it adds this program area into the schedule, and I want to put it up beside the area from the model. So now we've got a new column in our schedule. Not only that, when you go look in your drawings, when you click on one of your room objects, you can see that there is a program area here, and this is what the group thing was about. See how it says dimensions here? So your area is there, program area, so you might say this is supposed to be 500 square feet. So now you can see the program area said this is going to be 500. We're at 636. You know, you might look at adjusting the areas to suit the targets that you were looking for. So for the offices, you might say that was 1,000. For storage, you might have said that was 50. And then here we'll have so as each room of the program, you can put it in. So here, you can start entering all those areas in advance. So that's calculated values and adding a new parameter to your schedule. So we will leave that, the schedule stuff for now. Let's go and talk about door schedules. So that's a pretty common thing that you want to do in Revit, door schedules. A lot of times, of course, we did door schedules in what, Excel or whatever, or maybe in AutoCAD you used AutoCAD's table features. Talk about a waste of a good life. All right, so here we go, schedules again. So View tab, Schedules menu, Schedule and quantities. How many people have had the pleasure of doing a door hardware schedule? See, you guys have lived. The rest of you guys, you haven't lived until you've done a door hardware schedule. There are murderous things to do. A lot of firms sub it out because it's pretty wretched work. But boy, oh boy, Revit can make short work of a door hardware schedule. When you create a schedule for the first time, you folks will notice that there are two options here. Schedule building components or schedule keys. Now I'm just going to take a couple minutes here and I'm going to walk you folks through what the concept of a key schedule is. Now, a key schedule is like a schedule of a schedule. And allows you to further categorize objects that you are going to schedule. Okay, so with the door hardware schedule, for those of you who are uninitiated on such things, what a door hardware schedule does is it identifies different kinds of doors that are going to be used in a project, and they will have their own combinations of hardware that's going to be used on those doors. So I've worked for firms that do schools. And of course, schools have very defined sets of door hardware that are being used. So let's say on an entrance door, and you look at all the different kinds of hardware that can go on. So you can look at the whether it has a cylinder. You can look at what the latch function is. You can see if it has a self-closer. You can see what kind of hinges it has. Does it have a threshold? Does it have weather stripping? Door stops. Yeah, does it have a wall stop? Or a floor stop? Does it have a kick plate? And I can go on and on. Each kind of door in your project, so an entrance door, an office door, a classroom door. Each of these will have their own function. So an entrance door on the outside with a latch, you actually might have a mortise lock, which is a real heavy duty lock. It will have a self-closer. For hinges, it would have something like a ball bearing, non-removable pin on the outside of the door. It'll have a threshold. It'll have weather stripping. It probably has a floor stop on the outside and maybe a kick plate. Then an office door, it wouldn't have a mortise lock. It would have something just like a lock set. No self-closer. Hinges, just simply your 1.5 pair standard hinge. No threshold, no weather stripping, probably a wall stop. Classroom door, there actually is a function that's called classroom. It's just got a key on the outside so you can lock the room. Probably have a self-closer. You might have a self-closing set of hinges on it or not. No threshold, no weather stripping, probably a floor stop, and kick plate. So all these different kinds of doors that you have in a project, they have their own combination of hardware. So you've got entrance doors, office doors, classroom doors, and other doors. And you would list out all the different doors by using that new data row thing, like I showed you how you can make new rooms before they're put in the project. So in this case, you're creating all these different kinds of door hardware combinations before you've even gotten that far with your door schedule. So this is the key schedule. So when you start up the schedule quantities command, you choose schedule keys, and you go through the process of creating this door hardware schedule. Now on your regular door schedule, you're going to list all of your doors. So here's level 1, door 100, 101, 102, and so on. Now all of these columns that you see here, you would add them to your door hardware schedule just like we talked about. You'd add any of the columns in that you need, or you'd add new columns, because I don't think self-closers or thresholds or weather stripping is in the out-of-the-box list of parameters for doors. You have to add them, so you have to add them to the parameter. So you add them as needed for your door schedule or for your door hardware schedule. So whatever you add to your key schedule will also be available for you to add to your door schedule. So you have your your frame, material, and finish, and then your door, material, and finish, and then all this other stuff here. So whether it has a cylinder, what the latch function is, self-closer, hinges used, threshold, and so on. Now, why is this called a schedule key? Because this column right here, actually I should do it here. Can't do a curly key bracket. There. This column right here, Revit asks you what the name of this column is going to be. So I might call it hardware type, just like that, HW type. That's what that column is called. So you create this column called hardware type, and that's the key. So hardware type, you call it entrance, and you pick all the ideas here. So what happens is you take this hardware type column that you created to create your door hardware schedule, and you add it into your regular door schedule. Hardware type. So it will be listed right here. And what's going to happen is that for each kind of door hardware type that you make in your hardware schedule, when you add it to your door schedule, what it becomes is like a drop-down menu. So as soon as you click on a row, say for door 101, in a little cell, you'll see a little drop-down arrow here, and it's going to list each one of those different hardware types that you've made up. And as soon as you choose it, so here if I chose for door 101, if I chose entrance, it would automatically fill in all this stuff. So for latch function, over here it would say mortise, automatically. It would give you a self-closer. For hinges, it would be whatever it was there. Automatically, it would automatically check off all of those columns in your schedule. So, yeah, what it is, it's shorthand, right? You choose entrance, fills out all that stuff in your schedule. You pick office, it fills out all that stuff in your door schedule for each door. So what it means is that if you kind of avoided all that door hardware stuff now, this makes it way the heck easier to manage. So again, on residential projects, it's probably not so critical, but I can even put in the finishes of the doors into my door hardware schedule so that it automatically adds the right finishes to each one of my doors as I add it into the schedule. There is an exercise in our Session 8 folder on key schedule, so you can give that a go if it interests you. Alrighty. So here with my doors, I'm going to hit OK. And so same thing here, I'm going to choose the level first, double click it. And then I'm going to choose the mark first, and double click it. So the mark is the door's individual number. You'll also see a type mark listed here. Now you know how you've got like a 3070 door? That unique door has its own type number, but usually that's not what we schedule. Usually we schedule the individual number of each door. So then you probably want the width and the height. So there's width. And then height, go back and find it, height. So then you might want the frame material, the frame type, and then finish for the door. And you can see there's all kinds of other stuff here, like the thickness. And you know, like, do you see weather stripping in here? No weather stripping. No self-closer. So to do that, add a parameter. Now, what kind of a parameter do you use to do this? Now, be careful, because if you don't choose otherwise, Revit makes it a length parameter, and for weather stripping, you don't want to say 2 feet. You want to say yes or no. So there is a yes/no parameter, and if you were to use it, it puts a lovely little checkbox in your schedule. The problem is that if you use a yes/no parameter, when you put the door schedule on a sheet, it would actually say yes or no in that column, like YES or NO. And if it says yes, 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 yes across your schedule, your contractor's mind is going to explode. So don't do that. So when you are adding a parameter to your schedule to do something simple like whether there's weather stripping there or not, just make it text. And then use a capital X. Keeps it simple. Just to prove it to you, I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to make it a yes/no parameter for this one. And then I'm going to add another parameter. I'm going to call it self-closer. And this time I'm going to make this one a text parameter. There. So same thing, this is where you add all your fields. There's the buttons here to move them up and down if you want to change their order. Then we go to sorting and grouping and sort by level first, and then probably by the door mark. So all the doors are listed in sequence. So sort by level, then sort by mark. Then you can decide on your headings and how you want everything justified. Big tip. Once you start getting to all these different door hardware bits and pieces, change your headings from being horizontal, weather stripping. That goes a long ways across the page. Go vertical. And it goes weather stripping. That way you can keep your column nice and narrow. There you go. Now, unfortunately, once you create the schedule, Revit does not sort of show you the column in its vertical orientation. It's not until you put the schedule on a sheet that you see what's going on. See, there's the weather stripping, there's the self-closer. So now I can grab those little triangles at the top and make those columns narrower. So again, when you double click on your door schedule in the browser to go back and look at it, it makes the column narrower and just cuts it off so you can't see it. I presume in a future release they're going to make it so that when you're actually working on the schedules, if you choose in formatting, on the formatting tab, to make one of these parameters vertical, that when you're working on the schedule it will show that to you. So remember how I told you the checkbox looks like a nice checkbox? It's so nice. So I hit the checkbox here and I go back to the sheet to look at it. Yes. Great. So look when I do self-closer instead. I'm just going to put in capital X. There. So go look at it on a sheet. Much better. Way easier. So again, don't use a yes/no parameter for things that you're going to add on your doors. It's just too hard for people to deal with. Okay, the last thing I'm going to deal with here before I move on to groups is just to deal with headings in your schedule. So go back and find your door schedule in your browser here. So if you want to add a heading, say for dimensions or for your frame, here's what you do. So here I want to group these two columns and have a heading over top of them. So you can see there's where's the heading button here? Maybe it doesn't show up until yeah, maybe not. Okay, so here's what you do. Put your cursor in the title of the parameter. So on the second row here, click and drag sideways to the next column that you want to have grouped. There it is there, group. Oh yeah, it's group. Okay, so click, drag, and then hit the group button. There it is. And it puts a little cell at the top, and you can put in whatever you want. So in this case, I'm going to put in dimensions. Now this does not add any parameters to your project. It just makes a little heading above a set of similar parameters. So maybe I want to list that this is all frame stuff. Click, drag for 3 columns, hit group, and I'll put frame over top of it. So now when you look on your sheet at the door schedule, you can see you've got the headings on the top. Now, the original title of all of these parameters is shown on the column headings. You can edit them afterwards. So here I can make it WID, HT, and I can make it all uppercase. Now, just because I've changed the names of the headings, it does not change the name of the parameters. So for this door, it's still capital W width, and it's still capital H height. But if you want to rename the headings, Revit gives you that freedom, and it doesn't change the name of the parameters when you're looking at the door. So here, width, height, frame type, all of these, whenever I click on a door, you can see it's all here. Frame material, finish. See, and there's the parameters that we added. Weather stripping. Where's self-closer? There it is, self-closer up there. Now notice, see how here it says self-closer and it's under text? It's because it was a text parameter. That's kind of dumb. How can we fix that? How can we get it down here with weather stripping? Well, go back to your door schedule and go into your fields. So once you've opened the door schedule in the project browser, go over to the fields button, and we've got to find the self-closer right there. So we want to edit the group that it's in. So pick the parameter, Go down to the pencil icon. See where it says here, group parameter under text? I'm going to put it down, group it under other. So what that will do when I hit OK, and hit OK, now when I go back and look at a door, see, self-closer was moved from the text area up here down to other. So probably what you want to do is you start adding in these different fields for your door schedule, group them all together, you know, in the other heading. It doesn't really matter. And that way you can do things like saying, yes, this does need a self-closer. All right, just going to look here and see if there's anything else here that I want to talk about with regards to schedules. I think what we'll do is we'll move on to groups on page 3. Okay, what a group is used for, and it's probably one of the most useful features for repeating parts of your design, especially parts that repeat, such as a unit plan or an office layout. That's what groups are really used for. Something that you are going to make many copies of in your designs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draw a few walls. And I'm going to put a door in it. And I'm going to put in a desk. There we go. Now, what if we were going to have like 6 copies of this office and they were all going to be alike? But once you've drawn your first copy of the office, hold down the Control key and pick all the objects that are in this office. Wouldn't recommend that you put the room object in it. Leave the room object out. You can put the room objects in later. So there's my desk, and if I had a chair in it, and maybe even a plant and a filing cabinet, all that stuff can go in there. So once you've got all those objects selected, up on the ribbon you'll see this button right here. It's the group button. Then Revit asks for a name for this thing. I'll call it typical office. Hit OK. So now you get a little dashed boundary around this thing. And you've got this little thing here, which is the origin icon for the group. It's quite important, the origin icon is. And it is moved far too easily. Now, I'm going to be consistent, and I'm going to put this icon right up against the wall, right at the face of the wall. So here I can just grab it and move it to there. So that's the origin icon for the group. Now, once you've created a group, it will list in the project browser at the very, 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 very bottom. Groups, expand, and under model, there's the group. So if I want to use this group again, I can either copy the one that's here, or I can drag and drop a group out of the project browser. So just drag it into the view, and now I've got a copy of this group. So there it is. So there's my second office. Now I want to get it so it's in the walls are in the same place. So I'll use the move command, and I'll do a snap perpendicular, SP, to the front face of the wall. So I just type in SP for snap perpendicular, and then I hover over my other wall face there. And there it is. So now I need to move this down because it's interfering with the stairs. And I'll just move it to the next. So there we go. So now I've got 2 copies of this group. So here's where the power of groups comes into play. after you've grouped an object, you can see up on the ribbon that you can edit the group. So now, if I want to make it maybe a little bigger, move these walls around, change the direction of the door swing, and like I said, now I'm going to put in that filing cabinet. Actually, here, I'll show you guys a little trick. If you expand families in the project browser, let's say you want to put in a certain kind of door. So if I want to put in this 34 by 80 door, just click and drag it into the view, and now it activates the door command, and I can, hey, come on. Oh, maybe it doesn't work when I'm in a group. Shoot. I know it works when I'm not working in a group. I want to put in a filing cabinet, so that's under specialty equipment, I think. Or maybe it's under furniture. Where are we at here? Furniture. There we go. Nope, looks like I'm just going to have to use a regular old component command. Okay, place a component. So all the commands, the wall commands, the door commands, they are all available to you. Oh yeah, I don't want a wide one. Okay, so there's my filing cabinet. So I've added a filing cabinet. I've flipped the swing of the door. I've made the walls bigger. So for typical office now, when I hit finish, that's the way it looked before. So now they're both the same. So if I had 6 copies of this office kicking around in my project, I'd only need to modify one of them, and then all of the others automatically update. So again, click on a group, edit it, make the changes, use the regular drawing commands. Maybe you want to put a little window in it. So here I'm putting in a window. So adding that window, any changes, I finish, automatically gets added to all of the other groups in the project, regardless of what story they are on in your project. So if you're doing multifamily work, 50-story tower, unit plans, it would change all those unit plans at once. Now, what if you want to make a new version of this group? So let's say you want something that's maybe a little bit smaller and doesn't have the filing cabinet in it. Well, what you can do is click on your group, and we're going to edit it and duplicate it. So this is a typical office. I'm going to duplicate it and call it typical small office. So at the outset, these two groups are exactly the same. This group is exactly the same as the one before, because I just duplicated it. But what I'm going to do with my small office now is I'm going to edit it, get rid of the filing cabinet, get rid of the window, and I'm going to tighten up this office's size a little bit here. So now I do have 2 different offices, and I can swap between them. So once you have groups, you can switch between the groups if you really mean for them to be interchangeable. And this is why this origin icon becomes important. If you switch from one group to another, Revit maintains the insertion point for the group. So as I switch from this to the other group, see, the insertion point stays where it is. Now, let's say I move it over to the corner again. So I can make these groups so that they have different insertion points. So see here, typical office, I move the insertion point to the other wall. You can see the effect. So that's why when you are working with groups that you're really trying to swap one for another, make sure that you keep a same common insertion point so that when you switch from one group to another, your groups aren't going to start flying around all over the place. Now, some other tools. When you are editing a group, we've shown how you can use the drawing tools to add stuff, and you can just simply click an object and delete it, and it'll be gone from the group. But there's another tool, a couple other tools here. Remove. If you remove an object from a group, you are not deleting it. You're simply pushing it out of the group. So this desk here is part of the group. And you can tell because all the objects that are part of the group are black, the rest of the model is gray. So if I remove this desk, the desk is now outside of the group, but not deleted, just outside of the group. And when I finish, there's the group, and there's the desk. And I just didn't do it here. I also did it at the other place where that desk had been located. So that desk is now kicked out of the group. So one time when I was working with groups, I excluded a cabinet that I actually was supposed to delete. I hadn't had coffee. So I clicked the cabinet and I excluded it. I hit finish, and then like an hour later I was like, so I had to go through to all 200 units and delete the cabinet on my own because I forgot to delete it. I excluded it instead. So don't do that. So again, your groups are all listed down here at the bottom of the browser. So there's my two groups here under model. You're going to drag one and drop it into the view and then move it into place. Drag, drop, and place it where you will. So for your unit plans and for typical office layouts in your term project, those things will work like charms for you. Okay, so anything else that I go back and look at on page 7 about the working with schedules on sheets. That's something that you should get familiar with. But now what we'll do is we will hand out the quiz so you folks can start working on that, and you'll have until the end of class tonight to do it.
Before you do that.